Excuse me. I want to welcome everyone to our April 17th council meeting. And I see former Mayor Armstrong is here. Welcome to you. And please note we're missing Mr. Halapaska and Ms. Solis. They're not present this evening. We have two items from council. I kind of was hoping we would do the Martin Luther King suggestion or presentation first, if that's okay. I know Mr. De La Garza and Ms. Solis have been working on that. How would you like to proceed?
Someone's going to be.
You want to start it off?
I'm
Okay.
just going to kind of introduce it, and then John's got maps and all.
Okay.
As a reminder, council appointed an ad hoc committee comprised of Mr. De La Garza and Ms. Solis to look at potential roads to rename in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Mr. Marshall had brought it up and asked for consideration. Mr. Marshall is here tonight. Staff met with Mr. De La Garza and Ms. Solis and talked about what it would take to rename a road and that process it would go through. And then we met with Mr. Marshall to see what his ideas and where he was thinking. So we started that in January. We visited with TxDOT. Julie, Development Services Director, visited with TxDOT to get what it would take from their angle. And so the recommendation from the council members are, and Mr. Marshall agrees with, is to name a section of Zacklins Parkway, Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Highway. And John has got the map and the signs that would look like, and kind of we'll talk about that.
I think the first key point to make is this is a memorial highway designation. It's not a street name change. Does not change the name of Loop 463 or Zacklins Parkway. It simply designates it as a memorial highway. Does not change anybody's address, so there's no disruption as far as that goes. The TxDOT standards and the sign that was up on the previous slide is the standard that TxDOT uses. That sign is about 7 feet wide, 7.5 feet wide, and 2 feet tall, just to give you a scale of what we're talking about. The map that we have, James, shows you the limits of the designation that would reach from North Navarro Street or US Highway 77 around to the Houston Highway or Business 59. The TxDOT program that allows for highway designations is very specific in what it allows and what it doesn't allow. There can only be one sign on each end of the designated highway section, and those two green markers on this map show you where those signs would be located, one on each end of the designation. They would be located just off the main lanes, not the frontage roads, but the signs would be located just off the side of the main lanes in those general locations. The process is, if there's a consensus of City Council that you want to move forward with this option, we would put a resolution on the May 15th agenda for your consideration. That resolution would go to TxDOT, to go up through their process. Once it's approved in Austin and added to their designated highway list, then we will be asked to enter into an advanced funding agreement with TxDOT, which would provide for the fact that we would be paying TxDOT for the cost of these two signs. It's about $2,000 is the estimate that we have. And then TxDOT manufactures and installs the signs. I don't have an estimated timeline of how long that takes. We've never done it. We haven't gotten a clear indication of the timeline. But if you have any questions that we can try to answer, I'd be happy to.
Wow. It's interesting and it's actually fairly simple. Mr. De La Garza, did you have any input in particular, or? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
This was an agreement made by all of us on the committee. We communicated with Mr. Marshall, and I think it's a very unique idea, and I think it's a good idea for Victoria and the citizens and our community.
It's a significant roadway,
I think it's long overdue.
and yeah, I would agree, certainly agree with that. I wanted to support whatever y'all came up with, because we do need to do something. That's a very significant stretch of highway to become freeway, and I can envision over the years quite a bit of development around there, so, anyway. Comments? I know there's people here that want to speak also in citizens communication, but,
I think it's a great solution. It's one of the concerns I had was all the address changes. And I think this does honor Martin Luther King Jr. appropriately and doesn't cause a bunch of issues with renaming everybody's address. So
And
It's a good
not
solution.
to speak for Mr. Marshall, but he is here. When we met, you know, this was an area that he was very pleased with and also very sensitive to not making people change their addresses. So, you know, that was one of his comments.
okay. So we'll give you direction, you don't need it right away in terms of bringing back that resolution. I think there's a consensus here among all of us.
Sure, and that's
I'm
what.
good with that.
Okay, that's
we'll
fine
bring-
with me.
We'll work with TxDOT on the appropriate wording for the resolution and get it back on May 15th.
And if someone from the public comes up with some grandiose, better idea, we can certainly change things if we need to. But it's got to make you guys happy and everyone else happy before I change my mind. I know that. So anyway,
Right,
Okay.
that's what I'm thinking. I'm kind of looking at the citizens that are here because we've done this before, citizen communication, but
right.
I don't really see anybody squirming or wiggling or acting like they're ready to come pounce on us. So,
Okay,
you know, unless somebody comes up with something.
okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Well, I guess, I'll do my part. We only have a couple of people that want to talk on this subject though, right? We can, I want to open citizens communication and then, because I know Mr. Armstrong, you alluded you wanted to speak. Anyone else want to speak about this topic? No? Okay, let's open citizens communication right quick for that, and then I'll go back into my topic.
Will Armstrong, 105 Creekside. I had a speech, and I was going to say something. Y'all have solved the problem. You put it on the table, and you're all nodding your heads, and I congratulate you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. I just wasn't sure what you were going to say, so I wanted to make sure while we were on topic. Okay. And Mr. Marshall, thank you for being here, and we appreciate you. So I don't suppose you want to speak on this issue? No, no, sir? Okay, thank you. Well, then I'll go ahead and move back into items from council. Is there anything else that's not on here, items from council?
I have two.
Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry.
No worries.
My writing. I was wondering if I could get two updates. The emergency management plan update, we talked about having back to council in April or early May. So we'd have time to review it and get whatever our markups back to Rick and try and approve a final one in June sometime. How are we looking on
I
that?
believe the group that was looking at that met last week, reviewing final revisions on that. So haven't seen those yet, but I think
Okay.
that group, I know JJ was in that group. Are y'all finished with your review and now Rick's got it back? Okay,
Weeks. And then generators.
generators,
That's four.
Mm-hmm.
I was expecting to see them on this agenda.
yeah. Well, we have been working with Power Secure to do a contract. We've also got mitigation money that's been announced. So I think my plan was, I have a meeting with Donald and Gilbert tomorrow, but I want to talk to them a little bit more about, since that mitigation money is now being made available. You know, we've got some
Cool.
solutions, alternatives. You know, mitigation money will not, I'm being told, will not be paid for anything that you do in advance. And so council, and I was talking to the mayor this afternoon, probably at the May 1st meeting, I'll bring back to you guys, you know, we have an agreement with the Ashbrook that can provide us rental generators if we need be. You know, we've got transfer switches, we've redone the road at the raw water pump. That road has been, you know, reworked and sustained. And so it's going to boil down to a matter of, do we want to pay money out without waiting on the mitigation funds, or do we want to go ahead and wait on our ability to see if we're going to receive mitigation funds? We're working on notices of intents right now to apply for those grants. We've got a couple different options. TDM's got some mitigation grants. We have some grants through the Economic Development Group, which they have been in communication with John. The generators at the water treatment plant is something they're very interested in because of the economic impact it has on businesses. So council's going to need to kind of give me some direction on that, so.
And the mitigation funds that you're talking about is just the GLO plan that was released
Yes.
last week for comment.
But they're asking right now for a notice of intent on what we want to apply for. So,
What I read on it, I don't know, they didn't announce when the funding was going to be available at all, did they?
Actually,
John.
the money that you're talking about, Mr. Barknight, is CDBG DR funding through the GLO, and that's correct. That is under public comment right now. The hazard mitigation grant funding is already available through TDM. That is FEMA money. It's about $500 billion in this initial allocation, and it's currently available, and there's not a deadline to apply. So you can turn in your notice of intent, and they're going to process them as they get turned in. So that is in progress. The EDA grant is also currently, they just opened it up for applications last week, or maybe it was this week. So those two funding sources are already accepting applications. And then the
good.
CDBG DR money will be probably in April, or in May.
Even if we move forward with the Power Secure concept, 22 weeks to build the generators once a contract, so we're not going to have that through this hurricane season anyway. So,
Yeah.
and I don't believe, have we gotten a final contract from them yet, Donald?
We have one on the one that we were intending to purchase for the raw.
No, the
And
other
then-
one, the lease.
Oh, the lease, I have a draft that came in,
Okay.
Monday, I think.
Okay, so
And
we,
so,
which means
Okay.
after we look at it, legal's got to look at it. But I do think council's going to need to make a decision on, do you want to wait and try to get some mitigation money to pay for that, or move forward with this? So,
So there's not 120 megawatt just on the shelf at Power Secure?
they're saying they're going to have to build it, but,
I
know,
imagine they would. I
yeah.
was just being facetious.
Understand. But we're gonna need to thoroughly vet that again, since the money has started flowing.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My item, of course, is the interlocal agreement for governmental services between the city and Victoria County. Now, I know you're probably all aware of some of the discussions that the Commissioners Court has had about the fire contract. And I want to just generalize that whole interlocal agreement. There's a lot of history to some of it that's kind of strange in my mind, but there's three services we're talking about here. Of course, we provide fire service to the entire county, and then the county participates in the library and participates in, well, provides animal control. Animal control is a fairly easy one. You know, they're required by the state to have a health department and to do certain things. And as a city, we can impose certain ordinances locally that go above and beyond what requires them in animal control. So on our behalf, they enforce those ordinances. And I had asked Thomas to look into that. So in other words, what part of animal control do they provide for us? How much, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, let me back up a minute. What I suggested to the judge, we talked, is to break this up, and instead of having one contract where they just provide animal control and free rent for the library, and then we come up with a number for fire services, we need to have three separate distinct contracts. You know, I know, when I step back and looked at this, I really think it's bad what we're doing now. I mean, no offense to anyone who put any of it together before me, but so I suggested to him, why don't we, some point in the summertime, agree to a time to sit down, and we'll hand him a contract for fire services, and he hand us a contract for, you know, a lease for the building or whatever for the library building, and then a contract for how much it costs or how much they want to charge us to provide those animal control functions that go above and beyond what they're required to. So they would give us 2 and we give them 1. Now, I don't care how all that washes out financially. I need to look at this, I suggest that staff, that we price that fire contract appropriately. And that is a big discussion. They believe, I think the judge, and I'm not putting words in his mouth, I think he believes it's too much. I don't know. But we'll work those details out over the coming months. And then with the library, there's some history there. The Bronte Club had the library many years ago in the 60s and 70s. And then we took it over, and the land where the library sits now, I actually found the deed to it. We deeded that to the county and sold it to them for $10. And then they went and issued a bond, $1.25 million, and built the building. And that was kind of in perpetuity, their contribution to the library, to the county residences. So then, there's been some changes over the years, but in the 90s, at some point, it just became our responsibility for 100% of the capital cost of that building. So we maintained it all, and we have put a significant amount of money in the building and improvements and stuff. And that's where we are right now. Now, the judge, we talked, if he wants to charge rent, monthly rent for that building, he can. They can provide us with a contract, or they can provide us a contract for $10 a month or $0, or $30,000 a month if he wants. That's up to the Commissioner's Court. I also suggested if you want to sell us the library building, give us a number and we'll talk about it. If they want to get out of the library business, you have to understand, if the county doesn't want to be involved in the library, and, that also means that we'll have to check IDs at the door, right? You can't, it's going to be for city residents if we're going to have to foot the bill on it. So, but we'll get to that. It's up to them to decide how, if they want to participate in library services. And then with animal control, again, if those ordinances, those specific duties they do on behalf of the city, they perform for us, they just need to price them out and tell us how much they want. And we can decide whether we hire somebody to do that part ourselves or we contract with them to do it. That department, as I understand it, animal control is about $550,000 a year. Is that about right? That's what it costs them to run that department. Surely not all of that is just to enforce our ordinances. So just to give you an idea. So those are the 3 things, and we just need to break them up into 3 distinct contracts. They can decide what they want to participate in, and we'll do the same. And we can negotiate prices, or I'm sure the public will have a great deal of input into what happens too. So, and I would.
I'd kind of like to see some type of objective measurements that we're not guessing every time we go back to renegotiate, and it's a gut feel for what it is. And that's
Oh,
kind of.
exactly, yeah.
If we can just have some, and I know you got to sit down and discuss to come to agree what is an objective measurement to come up with the number, because you could be a million different variables with the fire EMS. And then one other item, I know it was in the paper, it was the restaurant inspections.
I don't think we inspect restaurants.
County does.
County
Yes.
does,
That's-
but that's
County
not
health
a
department.
city responsibility.
Yeah.
That's something that comes from state law.
State
not
health
from-
code.
Not from city
Not from city
regulations.
code, okay.
The,
So that can be taken off the table then,
That's,
because they're required.
they're
by the
required to do
state
it, yeah.
To do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they do it actually in several other counties. They provide that service to, do you remember?
Lavaca,
Lavaca
Calhoun,
County.
there's several
DeWitt.
counties. Jackson.
Calhoun, which is fine. The fire service, I agree with you 100%. You can't, it's not a usage thing. I hope that we never have another 911 call and they never have to be dispatched anywhere, right? But that's not how it works. We would still have to have that cost. To me, and we've talked about this last time it came up, it's got to be based on property values, population. There's got to be consideration taken for city residents paying county taxes and city residents. We should take into consideration what they expend on fire protection themselves, which I believe we can, out of all respect. We should take into consideration the volunteers and how they respond out in the county. We take all that into consideration, come up with something that's more objective. And, we need to price our service. That's my message to the city manager and others. This is what it costs. That's it. No amount of yelling or anything is going to change it. Let's just break these services up and do it right. So, not necessarily yelling, I should have said discussion, but it's got to be based on a rational logic.
So are you recommending a committee?
You want to be on it, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. I don't know, because, that really, we tasked the city manager with coming up with contracts. That's her job. And I know that I have opinions about what it should look like. And what I would suggest is we wait and see what they come up with. We have plenty of time to obviously weigh in. I mean, 4 of us can weigh in on this and make something different, but I would like to let them, let's take it slow. And we need to communicate to the judge sometime in the summer that, hey, let's have, you do your contracts, we'll do ours, and then we can start from that starting point.
Is there specialized equipment that we maintain to address fires outside the city limits?
Not really, and Tracy's here. Our brush trucks maybe, but we have brush inside the cities that we would use.
Correct. Brush trucks and a tanker truck, those are predominantly used in the county type response emergencies. A tanker truck is just a truck that carries a lot of water versus a regular fire truck.
Anything for like a DuPont?
It would be Respond there. They have their own water system, but any kind of industrial facility in the county would require a whole bunch of water and require those resources. Another big piece we use that seems to be used a lot is our hazmat resources and our technical rescue resources. Those obviously would be used in the city as well, but that's where we see a lot of those type of incidences in the county with hazmat events, highway accidents, those type of things.
I do, while Tracy's standing there, I know there's been some questions asked that people have a belief that we don't respond with all of our equipment in the county, and that's not true. We're going to respond with what the incident requires.
Exactly.
And I know there's people say we don't send our ladder truck out in the county. If the ladder truck's needed in the county, the ladder truck goes in the county. There's not.
Correct.
The county residents get our full complement of whatever's needed in the county, so.
And I know the judge and some of the commissioners have been very complimentary of the job our department does. They do not want to end the contract necessarily. I guess there's just some general maybe dissatisfaction over what it costs. I don't know, but we'll work it out. And I could be argumentative and say things. I'm not. There's no time for that right now. We'll work it out.
Do you mind if I go back to a comment you made?
Sure.
You said that you felt like it was bad. I don't think you mean the interlocal agreement with providing services. I think you mean the bundling of the contract
Absolutely.
and not separate it out.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So-
bundling them up is vague. You can't really get a good accounting for the service provided either way. So yes, you're correct. Thanks for that clarification.
And just for the public too, they're all since we began having interlocal agreements, it's always been a negotiated agreement between the city and the county. So both political bodies have approved the contracts at the time. So that's, I know that has been another question I've gotten,
I
So-
did run an interesting number on the library when I saw that, we could get $350,000 rent. So that's fine, but then you would have to split out your budget, which is 2.2 million, over the number of residents in the county. So city residents versus county, and the county residents would need to make up about $695,000 as their bill to go to the library. And so I said, I don't think it makes sense to do much what we're doing right now. If anything, we're not getting reimbursed enough.
It seems to me that,
Now, I didn't want to go down that road, guys, but,
No,
sorry.
it's-
Go ahead, Ms. Scott.
when it was first bundled, apparently it was quite a while ago. And there could have been a consideration at that point of, it costs X for this and it costs Y for this, so let's just calculate it, X minus Y, here's what the cost is. But now, 10 years down the road, that may not make sense. And the county may or may not be recognizing that they're getting a reduction in what the cost would be for fire department in exchange for these various things. I can't say for sure that they're getting a reduction, but that's certainly my expectation.
Okay. So to be continued, I guess, and we'll work it out. All right. Thank you, council. No other items from council. We'll go into citizens' communication. Again, just to be thorough, I don't think anyone would like to speak. Anyone want to come up and talk about anything at all? We've got one taker. Okay. And he knows the rules very well.
I'm Mark Lofgren, 116 Wilshire. I want to comment about the interlocal agreement because I have an interest in it. I think the one reason the judge is bringing it up, because it's a big budget item and they have to come up with $1 million because they want to renovate part of the courthouse building and add another courtroom. And they don't know where they're going to come up with the money unless they pull it out of the reserve. If you look, the original agreement was in 1999. There's been 6 amendments, but those amendments are just, we're renegotiating the prices. In 2007, there was another agreement, and that's when they decided that the library would be totally run by the city, the county would pay nothing for it. The health department, the county would pay for it, because before they calculated everything. And if you look at the amendments, if you look before, the county actually paid more. What happened is the counties negotiated themselves to pay less percentage-wise. The numbers have gone up. In 2007, the city's fire department's budget is half of what it is now. So they weren't paying a lot for the fire department, and they were paying a percentage, which they don't even pay that percentage now. Yes, it's a lot of money, but interlocal agreements are, I'm a county resident and a city resident. I don't believe that the county serves the people of the city fairly. I think that they don't pay for my EMS and fire. I pay city taxes for that. I pay county road and bridge taxes. They can spend that money inside the city limits if the city okays it. They don't. You pay $10 when you register your car, and all that money goes to county road and bridge. It's about $5 million. If you start adding up what the county does for people outside the county, you'll find out they do a lot for them. The reason this has gotten brought up, and you need to realize it is, it's a big amount of money and it keeps going up every year, and they've got other problems. I think the amount that they're being charged is fair right now. In fact, I think they really need to look at it. I think they're being undercharged. They're being charged $1.585 million, right? If I remember right. Okay. That's like 12% of our budget. 21% of the calls are out in the county. And those calls cost more money. They got to drive further. So please, when you do this, think about, I'm a county resident, okay, and a city resident. So, and you talk about separating them. I don't know that they need to be separated. It just needs to be, it's a percentage, that's what you pay. The problem the county has with it, it's a large amount of money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close citizens' communication and move into, we have one ordinance.
We have one ordinance. It is on emergency reading tonight. It is an ordinance adopting unanimous settlement agreement, setting rates and establishing tariffs for the provision of natural gas services by CenterPoint Energy Resources Corporation, doing business as CenterPoint Energy Intex and CenterPoint Energy Texas Gas Company within the city of Victoria, declaring this ordinance to be a final determination of rates, requiring acceptance by CenterPoint Energy Intex and CenterPoint Energy Texas Gas Company of the rates prescribed herein, and declaring an effective date. Because it is an emergency reading, we need an affirmative vote of 5 members, and we have 5 members here tonight.
Trying to tell us something? All right, we have a public hearing on this, I believe. Let's open the public hearing on C1. Anyone who'd like to speak to this item only, come forward now. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve item E1,
Second.
C1?
sorry, C1.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign? Okay, here's your votes.
Thank you. There are 3 items on the consent agenda tonight that'll be approved by a single vote. They are first, the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 3rd, 2018. Second, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Harrison, Waldrop, and Yaharick LLP to perform the city's annual audit for the year ending September 30th, 2018, in an amount not to exceed $48,000 and declaring an effective date. The third is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a renewal of the annual supply contract with Boundary Medical LLC for the purchase of emergency medical supplies in an estimated amount of $130,000 and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
A second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Okay, ayes have it.
Item E1 is a resolution appointing one new member to the Planning Commission to fill a vacancy and declaring an effective date. I have a blank in this resolution, Mayor and Council. So I have ballots today with the names of the 3 applicants. We'll pass these around and follow our normal procedure. I'll remind the public, as I always do, that we do not have secret ballots. These ballots are available for public inspection. They are retained by the city secretary. Council members, if you'll just put a number 1 at the top of your ballot in case we have a second a runoff vote, and put your name on your ballot as well, and you can simply circle whichever candidate you're voting for.
You were writing a lot.
To write
I
in.
wrote his name. All right, I wrote my.
I wanted to know if we could have those other 2 ballots for the folks who weren't here.
Oh, no.
That is 4 votes for Brian Rokita and 1 for Helen Walker, so we will fill in the blank with Brian Rokita's name, and then we have a resolution for a motion to approve.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Okay, thank you. City manager report.
And Andrew's going to do this, and Andrew, before you get started, may I have a privilege there to, I don't know, I'm not sure if council knows that Andrew's leaving employment with the city upcoming pretty soon, and we have hired an assistant finance director, Wesley Janasek, who's with us tonight. So we're lucky enough that Andrew gave us plenty of notice, and we were able to do this, so Andrew will have some opportunity to work with him before he departs our company, and we're going to miss Andrew greatly. And so we're glad to have Wesley and look forward to Wesley being part of our team. But Andrew's going to, Steve's going to help too, I guess, with the CAFR, but
Yeah, he was looking forward to maybe throwing out some stories, and I said, no, not tonight.
Steve
So,
was.
Yeah. So yes, tonight's city manager report is the official delivery of our CAFR. The CAFR itself was completed back in March. This was on our fiscal year ending September 30th of 2017, and it was obviously completed in March, so you can tell it's a very long process. We'll start interim work probably in August, early September, and then it's officially complete in September. So that's about a 6-7 month ordeal. Couldn't do it without the contract with HW. I'm not sure if any of my staff is here, but just countless hours working on the audit itself. It's being delivered virtually this year. So it was posted to the website in March, distributed to all the respective agencies. It's on the website. If you have questions at all as you look at it, please don't hesitate to contact us. Outside of that, I know Steve wanted to make a few general comments on the financial condition, and then we'll be happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you, Andrew. Mayor and members of council, the document that was completed is a very comprehensive report. There's a lot of good information. I would certainly encourage council to spend some time in reviewing this document. You know, the auditor's opinion remains the same as it has in prior years. It's what's called a clean opinion. The general fund balance is 34% of your annual operating expense. Y'all have a minimum fund balance policy of 25%. So you have exceeded that. The water fund had a very strong year from a financial perspective. You know, and overall, there's a section in the report that if you don't spend any time other than this section in the front is called Management's Discussion and Analysis. It's about a 12-page section of the report, and it kind of serves as an executive summary of the financial activity for last fiscal year. And other than city council, primary users of the document are bond rating agencies. And the MD&A is where they look, because they can very quickly assess whether or not the financial condition of the city improved or declined from the prior year. And there's a statement called the Statement of Activities. Actually, the net position had an increase, minor, but they did have an increase of 1% over the prior fiscal year. So that does indicate an increase in the financial condition from 2016. You know, y'all did have some unusual things this past year. You know, we had like a drop in sales tax, the storm. There's a lot of different things that occurred, but the general fund is still able to maintain a very healthy fund balance. And I would certainly, again, encourage questions from council. If not tonight, certainly at a future council meeting, I'd be happy to come back. If there's any questions at this point, I'll certainly try and answer them.
Council, nothing? Okay. You're off the hook.
Right,
Thank you, Steve.
There's still time for
A story?
some comments, yeah.
Steve, you should have said what a pleasure it is to work with Andrew. I always had.
Thank you. So does that conclude our business?
It does.
Okay, thank you. We're adjourned.